I didn't believe in the Wendigo. Not really. But in the first 20 seconds of this footage, you'll hear me whisper it. I hunger. And then just static. But I remember what I saw after that. The blood on my tongue. The bones in my hand. And the way my voice changed when I begged it to stop. My name is Callan. I'm 19. And I thought this was a joke. Every year in Ontario, someone revives the Wendigo Dare. You hike into Algonquin Park at night. Alone. You whisper, I hunger 3 times with your camera rolling. Then you upload the footage and collect your likes, your clout, your ego. Everyone knows the legend. It's half Cree myth, half campfire horror. A spirit born of winter and famine, stalking anyone driven by greed or hunger. But no one actually believes it, right? Except, last year a girl named Freya tried it. She went in smiling on a live stream, laughing with her followers. They found her phone a week later, blood-soaked, still filming, and she was never found. That should have been enough for me to say no. But I said yes, because I needed the views, because I needed to prove something, because somewhere deep down, I wanted to see what was real. The forest didn't feel haunted when I first stepped in, just cold, unnaturally cold. The moon was thin, barely lit the trail. Branches above me looked like veins. My breath fogged the camera lens. I should have turned back when my flashlight flickered, but I didn't, because I thought if I post this and survive, they'll remember me. I found the marker, a twisted pine, bent like it had bowed to something older. That's where they said to say it. 3 times. Aloud. I hunger. Once. My chest rattled with the sound. Twice the woods got quieter. 3 times. My voice cracked. And then, silence. No wind. No animals. Just my heartbeat and the high whine of recording static. Something scraped behind me, like claws dragging across bark. I turned fast, camera raised. Nothing. Only trees. But then, I noticed the smell. Sweet. Rotten. Like roadkill baked in sun. I should have run. But my legs felt submerged. Like the earth had thickened into syrup. And then, I saw it. A silhouette. Tall. Gaunt. With antlers that scraped the sky and eyes like empty lanterns. But when I checked my camera, all I saw was me, shaking, mouth open, hands dripping red, raw meat. My teeth were pink. I dropped the phone, stumbled back, gagged. What did I eat? I screamed it out loud, but the forest swallowed my voice. And then, behind me, a whisper. More. But here's the part that keeps me awake now. When I ran, my own footprints were already there. In the mud, leading deeper, like I'd done this before, like something had worn a path using my body. And in my head, I heard it again. Not my voice, ours. I hunger. You ever follow a path and realize it knows more about you than you do? That's what this felt like. Because when I turned to run, the trail didn't lead out of the forest. Curved, like a spiral, like a noose. And the deeper I went, the more familiar it felt. Not familiar like I've walked this before. Familiar like this place remembered me. My hands were still sticky. I could feel it drying between my fingers. Warm at first, then tacky. Then the smell hit copper and rot. Not on the ground. On me. I wiped my palms on my hoodie, but it smeared worse. Too dark to see what it was. But in my gut I knew. Blood. But whose? I reached for my phone. Gone. Still somewhere back at the twisted pine. Still recording, probably. Still whispering. I hunger. I needed to get out. I picked a direction, any direction, and moved fast. The trees blurred. My breath steamed out like smoke. But the trail, it bent. Again. And again. Until the forest opened into a place I didn't recognize, but somehow expected. A hollow. Sunken like the ground had collapsed in grief. And in the middle of it, something wrapped in a tarp. Half covered in pine needles. Half dug out by animals. But unmistakable. A body. My body jolted. Heart pounding. Brain screaming. Every instinct told me to run. But my legs carried me forward. Closer. Knees hit the dirt. Fingers trembled as I peeled the tarp. And there, lit only by my headlamp. A girl, or what was left, fingernails chipped, eyes wide, lips frozen in a scream, skin like wax, and a necklace. I recognized it. Tiny locket with a faded photo of a dog. Freya, the girl from last year. I staggered back, shaking. How did she get here? Why now? Why me? But a louder thought pierced everything else. Why did I know exactly where to find her? Because my footprints had led here. As if I'd brought myself back to the scene of something I'd already done. Or something I was supposed to finish. Then came the whisper again. Not behind me. Inside me. Feed. No. No, no, no. I turned. Tripped over my own panic. Scrambled uphill. Leaves slicing my hands. And just before I reached the trees again, a shape crossed in front of me. So fast. So quiet. Antlers. Eyes. Teeth. Not chasing. Just watching. Like a shepherd waiting for the sheep to circle back. When I broke through the tree line, the air changed. Lighter. But colder. And there, in front of me, was another version of the same twisted pine. Same bend in the bark. Same claw marks. And my phone, sitting neatly at the base. Like I'd never left. I picked it up, screen cracked but still glowing. Footage still rolling. I hit play. And the video showed me, at the beginning, laughing, joking, then whispering, "I hunger." But what came next wasn't what I remembered. I watched myself freeze, smile, then reach down, and pull something from a shallow grave. Not Freya, someone smaller. A boy, wrapped in a hoodie just like mine. Same hoodie. The screen went dark. And then static. And underneath the static, a voice that sounded like mine. The first time I heard myself speak. And knew it wasn't me. I was still gripping my phone. Standing in that clearing. Watching a version of myself dig up a boy I didn't remember burying. Same hoodie. Same voice. But a face twisted with something I couldn't name. Not rage. Not grief. Something emptier. Something that wanted. And beneath the static, just before the video cut out, I whispered, "One more." But it wasn't a whisper. It was a promise. I dropped the phone. It didn't bounce. It just sank into the mud, like the forest didn't want me to stop watching. My breath was coming too fast, too shallow. You know that feeling? When your mind is moving so fast your body can't keep up. That moment when panic turns to silence. Not because you're calm, but because you've burned through every reaction. That's where I was. Empty. Except for the pounding in my chest and the single thought crashing through me like a wave. What did I do? I walked. I don't remember for how long. The forest doesn't give you time. It folds it, like pages in a book torn out and shuffled. I followed the crooked trail past trees that leaned away from me, past clawed rocks, past scraps of flannel nailed to bark like warnings I was too numb to understand. And then the forest whispered again. This time, not a voice. A memory. Came fast. Like a dream forcing its way in. Winter. Last year. Me. In this same forest. Freya beside me, laughing nervously. She dared me to come. I dared her to stay. We were trying to go viral. But something happened. The footage didn't save. I told people she ran off. That I got separated. That I searched. That I cried. But now I remembered what I bury. It wasn't just her. It wasn't just a dare. We saw something. Something tall and gaunt, with skin stretched like leather over bones. Teeth like splinters. Antlers not like a deer, but like roots growing backward through the skull. It didn't chase. It didn't attack. It watched. And when Freya said she was cold, that she couldn't feel her hands, it smiled. And then, I wasn't me anymore. I remember the moment it slipped in. A numbness behind my eyes. A silence in my thoughts. And when I looked down at my hands, they were covered in dirt. And I was alone. And the whisper came again. Feed. Back in the present, I stumbled out of the memory, gasping. I didn't fall, I collapsed. Face pressed to wet earth, hands twitching. The blood, hers, mine, who knows, was dry now. But I still tasted it. Iron. Rot. Memory. I screamed until my throat cracked. But no one answered. No one ever answers in this forest. And then I saw it. The clearing had changed again. Trees farther apart. The air heavier. A clearing shaped like a circle. Stones stacked into symbols. Bones tied with string hanging from the branches like ornaments. And in the center, a boy, no older than 13, tied to a post with rope and red cloth. Breathing, barely. His lips were blue. And carved into the dirt around him, my name. Over, and over, and over. Callan. He looked up at me, eyes glazed with fear, and said, in a voice that didn't match his face, "You brought me here last time." I backed away, heart slamming, bile rising. "No," I said. "No, I didn't." But the boy kept speaking. Calm, like someone else was using his mouth. "You're not here to save me. You're here to remember." Then his face changed. Muscles twitching. Bones cracking under the skin. And just for a moment, his shadow stretched. Antlers. I ran. God, I ran until my lungs tore. But no matter how far I went, I kept seeing him. That boy. Tied. Waiting. Like he was waiting for me to finish what I'd started. Like this wasn't a new story. Just the next chapter. What do you do when someone remembers you, but you don't remember them? When they say you brought them here. When they look at you like they've seen your face in their last nightmare, and you can't deny it, because deep in your bones, you feel it's true. I didn't stop running. Not even when branches lashed my face. Not even when the forest bled into fog and the dirt turned to ash beneath my shoes. But nothing changed. Everywhere I ran, I heard him breathing. That boy. The ropes. His voice. Too old for his body. Too calm for someone waiting to die. "You brought me here last time. Last time. Like this had happened before. Like I had happened before." I finally collapsed beside a creek I don't remember crossing. Fell hard. Arms scraped and chest heaving. Heart kicking like a trapped thing. Water trickled slowly. Too thick. Almost viscous. Not clean. Dark. Like it had forgotten how to reflect. I leaned over to look at my face. But it didn't show me. Just static. Like the video. Like my memory. And floating just beneath the surface. Teeth. Not human. I scrambled back. Slipped. Slammed my elbow on stone. Screamed. But something behind the pain felt familiar. Like I'd hurt myself here once before. Like my body remembered what my mind refused to. I blacked out. For seconds. Minutes. When I came to, the forest had changed again. I was lying in a pit. 6 feet deep. Dirt at my shoulders. No shovel. Just claw marks in the soil. And beside me, another body. Wrapped in an old jacket. No face I could see. But a name was stitched inside the collar. Asher. And suddenly the memory surged back. Too vivid to deny. Flashback, 2 winters ago. I was 17. Living with my mom after my dad vanished into some backwoods conspiracy. Chasing ghosts or God. And Asher was the foster kid we took in for 6 weeks. 12 years old. Shy. Jumped at thunder. He followed me everywhere. Watched every video I uploaded. Begged me to take him on one of my urban explorer hikes. So I did. But I never posted that footage. Because we didn't come back the same. I remembered the hike now. The same trees. The same spiral trail. The same twisted pine. He'd gotten scared. Said something was watching us. Said it talked to him first. That night he didn't sleep. He just kept mumbling one phrase in the dark. "You feed it or it feeds on you." I thought he was having a panic attack. But I woke up before dawn. And he was gone. Everyone thought he ran away. I told the police that too. But I remembered the dirt under my nails. The bruises on my arms. The dreams I couldn't explain for months after. Now he was back. Not aged. Not changed. Still 12. Still tied to that post. Still waiting. But for what? Me? Or it? I clawed my way out of the grave-like pit, choking on soil and questions. I needed answers. But the forest only gave trails that led nowhere and smells that led everywhere. The rot was stronger now. Meat sweet and fungal. And under it, that voice. Mine. Not mine. Twisted. Hungry. You're almost ready. I stumbled into a clearing again. Same circle. Same ropes. Same boy. But this time he wasn't alone. There were others tied beside him now. Figures I recognized only after staring. Freya. A man who looked like my father. A girl I went to school with, missing since 2020. Their eyes were glassy. Their mouths sewn shut. Breathing but barely. And standing behind them, that gaunt figure. Antlers high and sharp like jagged ice. Ice-sunken pits. Mouth too wide. Stitched at the corners, and yet still smiling. And in that instant, I understood the truth. The Wendigo doesn't kill you. It wears you, uses your shape, your smile, your voice. It feeds on your hunger. For fame, for control, for escape. Until there's nothing left but the hunger itself. And when it's done wearing you, you become part of the forest. Another whisper, another watcher. But until then, you're the bait. And I had brought them all here. Every one of them. Freya, Asher, my father. Because I wanted to matter. Because I wanted more. Because I whispered those words. I hunger. The Wendigo turned toward me. And in my voice it said, "You've always been the hungriest. Have you ever looked at yourself, really looked, and seen something smiling back that wasn't you?" That's what happened in that clearing. That's what is happening now. Because the thing with the antlers, it didn't move. It didn't growl. It didn't lunge. It just stared. And smiled. With my smile. The ropes groaned. The boy Asher lifted his head. His lips were bleeding where the fabric cut too deep. His eyes were glazed, but not gone. Still fighting. But when he saw me, he didn't scream. He didn't beg. He just said, in a voice that made the blood freeze in my teeth, "You said you'd come back. You said you'd take it back." I stepped forward. I don't know why. My legs moved on instinct like memory had overtaken muscle. And with each step my mind fractured. Because every face tied to those posts, I knew them. Not just names. Not just headlines. I remembered laughter. I remembered moments no one else could. I remembered them trusting me. And now, they were offerings. I reached for Asher's ropes. My hands shook. Not from fear. From rage. Rage at myself. Rage at the thing watching me. Rage at the truth I couldn't keep swallowing. I brought them here. Not once. Not twice. Over and over. Because every time I whispered, "I hunger," every time I followed that spiral trail, the forest let me forget. And the Wendigo wore what was left of me. Behind me, the creature finally stepped forward. Its hooves didn't crunch the leaves. They sank into the ground like ink into paper. Every inch of it was wrong. Too tall. Too thin. Bones flexing under skin like they didn't belong. But the worst part? Its eyes. Not glowing. Not hollow. Just human. My eyes. And when it opened its mouth. "You're almost done remembering." I screamed and swung my fist at it, but it didn't flinch. Didn't even move. Because it didn't need to. The forest reacted for it. Roots coiled up from the ground, wrapped around my legs. The air thickened, wet and warm. And just behind my left ear, a whisper. So quiet I could almost pretend it wasn't real. "You can let go now." The roots pulled harder, but something else pulled back. A memory, sharp and violent. Asher laughing beside me, asking if Wendigos were real. Me saying, "They're only stories." Him looking straight into the trees and whispering, "They're all true somewhere." I yanked against the roots, fell to my knees beside him. His lips moved again, weaker now. "You can't kill it, but you don't have to be it." I stared at him. The Wendigo had stepped closer. Its breath came in hisses. It smelled like mildew and iron and rotting teeth. "You already are," it whispered. "You wore me first." And I saw it then, every version of me, flashing like strobe images, laughing with Freya, digging beside a shallow grave, feeding bones into the fire, whispering, "I hunger," with blood on my tongue. I was the door. And every time I came back to these woods, I opened it. But Asher was right. I didn't have to be it. Not again. I reached into my hoodie's pocket, forgotten until now. Inside, a lighter, old, rusty. Freya had given it to me the night we filmed. Said it belonged to her grandfather. Said it always lit, even in the dark. I flicked it. The flame burst up, small but real. And for the first time, the Wendigo moved, jerked backward, shrank, snarled. The posts began to smolder. The ropes caught flame. The clearing filled with smoke and screams, not of pain but of release. Freya's mouth tore open. She exhaled. My father's eyes finally closed. Asher slumped into my arms, and the forest screamed. The Wendigo lunged. But it didn't lunge at me. It lunged into me. And this time, I didn't resist. Because maybe you can't kill it. Maybe it's ancient and starving and eternal. But I wasn't empty anymore. Not blind. Not afraid. I let it in, and I dragged it into the fire with me. The flame exploded. The clearing cracked. The circle burned. And everything went black. When I woke up, it was morning. I was lying just outside the woods, on the edge of the Algonquin trailhead. No rope burns. No blood. Just ashes on my palms. My phone beside me, battery dead. But inside my pocket, the locket, Freya's, still warm, and carved into the bark beside me. You remembered. They say if you survive something unspeakable, you walk away stronger. They never talk about the part where you start wondering, what if you didn't walk away alone? The trailhead looked normal in daylight. Cars in the gravel lot. Joggers stretching. Kids with water bottles and crumpled maps. Laughter. I watched them like someone watching a film they don't remember auditioning for. Everything was too bright, too clean, like the forest hadn't just swallowed me whole and spat me back out. But I still had proof. The locket in my pocket. The ash under my fingernails. The scar on my wrist where a root had wrapped too tight. And the memories. So vivid they played behind my eyelids every time I blinked. I didn't just survive. I remembered. But the question rotting inside me now was worse than any scream I'd heard in the woods. What did I bring back with me? I hitchhiked home. Didn't speak much. Every driver said I looked pale. Tired. Haunted. One guy, middle-aged, kind eyes, asked if I'd seen a ghost. I almost laughed. No, I said. But I used to be one. He didn't ask another question. Back at my apartment, everything was where I left it. My laptop still open to the forum thread on viral dares that went wrong. Freya's name in bold. My fridge buzzing. A half-finished energy drink. Mundane things. And yet the second I stepped inside, the air shifted. Like the walls were holding their breath. I closed the door. Locked it. Then triple locked it. That night I didn't sleep. I tried. I lay still. In the dark. Eyes closed. But my ears didn't. Because at 2:13 a.m., the static started. Not from my phone. Not from my laptop. From the vent. A whispering hum like teeth chattering in a cold mouth. I got up, heart pounding. Pressed my ear to the metal grate. And beneath the static, barely audible, I heard, "You let it in." I ripped the vent open. Nothing. Just dust. But the hum didn't stop. It was everywhere now. In the hum of my fridge. The buzz of the ceiling light. Even in the silence between my breaths. And when I glanced at the mirror by my door, the only one I'd forgotten to throw away, I didn't see myself blinking. I saw me, smiling. I backed away, grabbed the mirror, smashed it on the floor. But the glass didn't crack. It just absorbed the hit, rippled like water. And then, it reflected a forest. A spiral of trees. A figure tied to a post. Ropes burning. And me standing in the center, with antlers. I screamed, tore the frame off the wall, threw it out the window, listened to it shatter 4 stories down. Only then did the static stop. But I didn't feel relief. Just that same cold hollowness the Wendigo had left behind. The next morning, I turned on my phone. The screen glitched, then flickered back to life. A single notification pinged from an app one didn't remember installing. It was called Relic. No icon. Just a black screen with one phrase in white text. One more. I deleted it. Or I tried. Came back. That day, I wandered through town like a ghost in my own life. Saw posters of missing people I knew weren't missing anymore, because I'd seen them tied to trees. I called the hotline, tried to confess, but the number disconnected before it rang. I walked into the police station, but the second I stepped through the metal detector, static filled my ears again. No one looked at me, not once. When I got home, my door was open, not broken, not forced, just open. And on my bed, carefully laid out, 3 items. The lighter Freya gave me, my old hiking boots still caked with soil, a folded piece of paper. It had my handwriting, but I never wrote it. It read, "You lit the fire, but the forest remembers who you were before the flame." I dropped it. The lighter sparked in my palm on its own. A flame danced up, and in its reflection, I saw something behind me. Not in the mirror, in me. Something curled in my ribs, waiting, not yet awake, but stirring. You see, no one tells you this part. They say monsters live in forests, that you leave them behind when you escape. But the truth is, some monsters just change addresses. And now, every night, I wake up with mud under my nails. My phone alarms go off at 2:13 a.m., even when I delete them. And some mornings, I find leaves in my bed, antler-shaped shadows on my walls, and whispers in my mouth I don't remember saying out loud. I hunger. I thought I was the only one to survive the forest, the only one to carry the weight, the only one who still heard it breathing through the cracks in normal life. But I was wrong, so wrong, because the Wendigo doesn't just choose one. It waits, and then it calls the next. And someone answered. It started with a knock on my door at 2:13 a.m. Of course, always 2:13. I was already awake, not by choice but by habit now. That's the hour when the whispers start. The lights dim. The dreams bleed into reality. So when I heard the knock, slow, measured, soft like a heartbeat, I didn't move. Who knocks at that hour? Who comes to visit someone like me? I should have ignored it. But ignoring the forest never worked. It only got louder. I opened the door. A girl stood there, soaked, shoeless, hair matted like she'd walked through branches instead of streets. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me, studied me, like I was a name she hadn't heard in years, but somehow recognized. Then she spoke. "You said the fire would end it." My throat went dry. I stared at her. She was maybe 18. I was too old. A scar across her cheek shaped like a twisted tree root. "Do I know you?" I asked. She smiled, but there was no joy in it. "Not yet, but we've been to the same place." She reached into her coat, the lining torn, stained with something dark, and pulled out an object wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it slowly, deliberately. Inside, my lighter, the same one I threw into the flames with the Wendigo. The same one I left behind, burnt at the edges, still warm. I backed up. "This isn't possible," I whispered. She stepped over the threshold without asking. Let the door swing closed behind her. "Nothing about it is. That doesn't mean it isn't happening." She sat on my couch like she belonged there, like we'd had this conversation before in some version of this room that no longer existed. Then she spoke again. "My name's Sylvie. I went in 3 months ago. Took my brother. It told me to." I felt my chest cave in. Because the same words had been spoken in my own voice once. Because that was the same script the forest always used. "You brought him in?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She didn't blink. "He said he was hungry." I thought it meant he wanted food. He meant something else. She looked at me, eyes flickering like candlelight. "We ate something. I think it was a deer, but the bones didn't match." She pulled out a photograph. Crumpled, wet, but visible. 2 kids, her and a boy, both smiling in front of the Algonquin sign. It was dated August 18th, the day I burned the clearing, the day I thought it ended. My jaw clenched. "You were there the same night?" She nodded. "The forest burned behind me, but not around me. I think you cleared a path. But it only widened the door." I stood, Paste. Everything was spinning now. What do you want from me? I snapped. She tilted her head, voice calm. Not what you think. I didn't come to blame you. I came to warn you. She pulled up her sleeve. Carved into her forearm. Fresh but healing. I remember. And then she whispered something that made my skin crawl. We're not survivors. We're carriers. I sank into the opposite chair. The room suddenly felt smaller. Breathing became harder. Carriers. Like a sickness. Or a curse. You still hear it too? I asked. She shook her head slowly. Not exactly. I see it now. In reflections. In people. Her eyes flicked toward my hallway mirror. The new one. The one I swore I hadn't looked into since the forest. It hides in us. It learns. And it spreads. I felt cold. Like the air was being siphoned out of my lungs. Then what do we do? I whispered. Sylvie stood. She placed the lighter on my table like an offering. We find the others. Every name the forest whispered. Every person who made the dare. Every kid who vanished in the spiral. We don't let it divide us. Because if we do... She looked at me with eyes so hollow I couldn't tell if she was crying or just done. It wins. And it starts again. Then she walked out. No goodbye. No door slam. Just the smell of wet pine left behind. And the sound of something moving. Not outside. Inside. Crawling behind the drywall. Whispering syllables I couldn't repeat aloud. That night, I found the first name on the list. Written in my own handwriting. On the back of the photo Sylvie left behind. A name I hadn't spoken in 10 years. A name tied to the first time I ever walked into the forest. Caleb Braxton. Lost in Algonquin in 2015. Never found. Last seen with his cousin. Me. The forest didn't start with me. It didn't begin with Freya or Asher or even Sylvie. I used to think I was the first to hear the whisper. But now I know. I was just the first to answer twice. Caleb Braxton. The name pulsed on the back of that photograph like a wound I'd forgotten how to bandage. 10 years ago. I was 9. He was 12. My cousin. My best friend. Gone. They said he vanished during a camping trip. Everyone searched for days. Helicopters. Dogs. No trace. But I knew. Even then, some part of me knew we hadn't just lost Caleb. We'd been called into something. And only I came back. That memory was buried. Until Sylvie showed up. Until the locket reappeared. Until the lighter burned on my table like a ticking clock. Now I couldn't shut it out. And as soon as I let the thought in, the forest opened inside me again. Flashback summer 2015. We were deep in the woods behind our uncle's cabin. The trees there weren't as thick as Algonquins, but the air felt older, sweeter, sickly. Caleb said he found a strange symbol carved into a tree, a spiral made of teeth nailed into the bark. He dared me to follow the trail it pointed to, and like always, I said yes. We wandered for hours. Sun dipped behind the trees. Fog rolled in, unnatural and cold. Then the woods went silent. And I mean silent. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that feels like a stage play, like the world is waiting for the next line, and you're the only one who doesn't know your cue. That's when Caleb whispered, "Do you smell that? Sweet, rotten, like dead flowers in syrup." And then, we saw it. Not the full creature. Just a shape behind the trees. Tall. Antlers twisted like roots. As like two mirrors, reflecting us. I ran. He didn't. I didn't stop until I hit the cabin porch. Bleeding from my knees, hands shaking. I told everyone he'd gone the other way. That we got separated. But even then, at 9 years old, I knew I was lying. Back to present, 2025. I sat in my dark apartment, rewatching that memory through eyes that didn't blink. I whispered his name aloud. Caleb. And the lights flickered. Not a coincidence. Not anymore. I stood, pulled out the hiking map I'd buried in a drawer months ago, spread it across the table. Algonquin, marked with crosses. Freya, Asher, Sylvie's brother. And now Caleb. But his disappearance wasn't on the official map. Because his story didn't make the news like the others. Because no one connected the pattern. Except maybe Uncle Marcus. He moved away after Caleb vanished. Sold the cabin. Shut down. Never spoke about that day again. I hadn't seen him in 6 years. But when I searched his name, I found something strange. A blog. Buried deep. Unlisted. Just text. Old fonts. No images. Titled, Feed the trees // keep the fire. Each entry was a date. Some with coordinates. Some with names. The entries started in 1987. Dozens of missing people. Locations near dense woods across Canada. But the most recent entry was what made my skin crawl. August 18, 2025. The same day I lit the fire. The same day Sylvie entered the forest. It read, Callan returned the flame. Door opened wider. The fire was never to end it, only to begin the cull. I stared at the screen until the text blurred. Then I noticed something else. Comment. Left just 2 days ago. By a user named Widow Pine. It read, He remembers now. Caleb is the tether. The cycle only breaks if he is found. But the body was never buried. I didn't sleep that night. I drove straight to the old cabin the next morning. Took hours. Backroads. Gravel. Forgotten signs. The place looked smaller now. Overgrown. Half swallowed by the forest. But as I stepped out of the car, I smelled it again. That same sweet rot. I circled the cabin, boots crunching dead needles until I saw it. A spiral. Freshly carved into the siding. Teeth nailed around it like a crown. And below it scratched into the wood. I never left. I dropped to my knees and dug. With my hands. No tools. Just panic. Beneath the porch, buried in black earth, I found, not bones, not remains, a backpack, faded blue, Caleb's name stitched on the strap. Inside, a comic book we'd shared, a walkie-talkie, and a piece of paper folded in half. My name written in red crayon. Inside the paper, I followed the spiral. You didn't, but it likes you more. Suddenly, the walkie-talkie crackled in my hand. Dead for 10 years. Then a voice, full of static. Callan, are you coming this time? Some forests are mapped. Some are charted, studied, fenced. But the one I returned to now, the one behind my uncle's cabin, wasn't a place. It was a threshold. And 10 years ago I crossed it, but this time it felt like it had been waiting for me to come back. I gripped Caleb's walkie-talkie like a lifeline. Dead plastic. Brittle speaker, but still warm, still humming with his voice. Callan, are you coming this time? The world around me was still, too still. The air was thick, muffled, like the forest was covered in invisible snow. And then the spiral appeared, not drawn on the ground, not carved into trees. In the path, the trail curved unnaturally, subtle, perfect, endless. A spiral made not with symbols but with space. And my feet were already following it. Each step brought back memories I didn't want. Caleb laughing. Me pretending not to be scared. The trees tightening around us. The smell of sap and meat. His last words. You don't have to run faster. You just have to run first. God. He knew. Even then, he knew what was coming. The trees closed in now. Limbs like arms. Moss like skin, and then something new. Photos, stapled to trees, taped to bark, fading in black and white, pictures of kids. Their names scratched beneath. Freya, Asher, Sylvie's brother, Caleb, me, and at the center of the spiral path, an empty photo frame, no name, but I knew it was waiting for the next one. I called out. My voice cracked. Caleb, the forest swallowed it. But a second later, he answered. You made it further this time. His voice wasn't ghostly. It wasn't weak. It was calm, like he hadn't aged, like he'd been narrating this whole story from behind the trees. The door only opens when you're ready, and the door doesn't lead out. I kept walking. The air smelled like wet copper and pine needles. Then I saw the tree, the one from the memory, the one with teeth nailed into it. But now there were hundreds. Jaws from animals. Maybe not animals. spiraled in rows, each glistening with fresh sap. In the center of the tree, a hollow. Inside, a jawbone tied with red thread. I reached in, and the moment my fingers touched it, my vision fractured. Flashback, the truth of that day. Caleb and I hadn't gotten lost. We played lost. We followed the spiral as part of a dare. A rumor we'd read online. Say, I hunger 3 times and film what happens. We brought snacks. A flashlight. No fear. But something found him. Something old. Watching. He tried to walk away. But I whispered the words first. And the forest chose me. I remembered now. How he screamed. How I turned my back. How I didn't just leave him. I traded him. I collapsed to my knees in front of the tree, jawbone still in hand. Sobbing. The guilt roared louder than the whispers ever had. And from behind me, footsteps. Slow. Crunching. Wet. I turned. And there he was. Caleb. Still 12. Still wearing that stupid hoodie with the comic print. Still barefoot. But his eyes were wrong. Dark. Deep. Too calm. And in his voice, another voice. You kept walking. You finished the spiral. That means it's yours now. He smiled. His teeth were no longer his. Thin. Jagged. Like the ones nailed into the tree. It feeds on stories. Yours was unfinished. Now you remember. I backed away. Caleb, I didn't know. You did. You just let yourself forget. Suddenly, behind him, trees shifted. Bending. Snapping. Bowing. And through the cracks, the Wendigo, fully formed. No longer hiding behind human shadows or smoky memories. Towering. Breathing like a furnace. Its ribcage open and something inside still moving. Caleb didn't flinch. He just said, You brought fire. But fire doesn't destroy the forest. It teaches it to grow differently. And then he pointed at my chest. It's growing in you now. You feel it, don't you? And I did. God help me, I did. The ache in my bones. The static in my spine. The dreams that weren't dreams. The hunger. Then he stepped forward. Held out a hand. There's only one way to end it. I stared at it. At his hand. Smaller than mine now. Dirt under the nails. Scar on the palm shaped like a spiral. I whispered, broken. What happens if I take it? He smiled. Then you become the story. And someone else gets to forget. And the Wendigo breathed louder. The forest tilted. The spiral spun beneath my feet. And all around me, the trees whispered in one voice. You already said it once. Say it again. Feed us. The first time I whispered, I hunger. I didn't know what I meant. It was a game. A dare. A myth with no teeth. But the second time I was desperate. Wounded. Empty. And the forest knew. It always knew. Now here I was, kneeling in the spiral that had taken everything from me. Caleb stood before me, 12 years old, unchanged. His outstretched hand, a mirror of the choice I made as a child, to run, to forget. And behind him, the Wendigo loomed. Its ribs were open. And inside them, pulsing like a trapped heart, me, not my body, my fear, my hunger, my want. The part of me that whispered for more even when I should have said enough. The forest circled tighter. The wind screamed. Trees bowed. The spiral beneath my feet burned red with light that had no source. And in my mind, 2 memories fought for space. Caleb, laughing beside me, handing me a peanut butter sandwich, saying, You always want the biggest piece, huh? Me, 10 years later, feeding a flame with bones and lies, saying, I thought this would end it. I was the same boy in both memories. And the forest had been feeding off that boy ever since. Take it, Caleb said again, voice layered with something deeper, older. You either carry the hunger, or you pass it on. I looked at his hand. What was I reaching for? Forgiveness? An ending? A new beginning? The Wendigo stepped closer. It didn't snarl, didn't rush, just waited. Because it didn't need to kill me. It just needed me to choose. That was the horror. The spiral wasn't a trap. It was a bargain. And all of us had signed it. Freya. Escher, Sylvie's brother, me, even Caleb, especially Caleb. I stood slowly, trembling, a piece of the forest inside my lungs now, every breath thick with soil and rot. But something else was there, too, the fire. Not the flame I lit in the clearing. Not the one that scorched ropes and set spirits free. The fire within me. The spark Freya saw when she handed me that lighter. The spark that said, "You don't have to run." I looked Caleb in the eye. No. His brow furrowed. The Wendigo paused. "I won't take your hand," I said. "I won't pass this on. I won't let someone else carry what I couldn't." His mouth opened slightly, but I kept going. "I came here to remember, and I do. I remember what I did, what I chose, who I left." I stepped forward, and this time, the spiral shifted, pulled inward, tightened, collapsed like a dying star. I pulled the jawbone from my pocket, still tied with red thread. Caleb's or mine didn't matter. I snapped it in two. The forest screamed. The trees bent backward. Light poured from the soil. The Wendigo howled, not in rage, but in grief, because I'd broken its tether. The bargain, the spiral. Caleb fell to his knees. His face softened. His eyes, once hollow, blinked. "Callan," his real voice, his first voice. "I'm here," I said, dropping beside him. He looked at me like a boy who finally woke from a nightmare, and I held him. The Wendigo took a step toward us. His body began to crack, splinter, break. The antlers turned to ash. The stitched mouth split open, and from its ribs, light burst forth. Thousands of faces. Freya, Escher, Sylvie's brother, my father. Strangers. They didn't cry. They just drifted, released. And when the last soul escaped, the Wendigo collapsed into itself. Ashen silence. The spiral was gone. The forest uncoiled, and morning light touched my skin. Real sunlight. Warm. Alive. Caleb and I walked out of the woods side by side. He didn't ask where we'd go. Neither of us did. Because it didn't matter anymore. We weren't running. We weren't feeding it. We were ending it. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, I returned to the cabin. With Sylvie. We planted a tree where the spiral used to be. No sigils. No markers. Just roots and silence. The lighter stayed buried beneath it. And the hunger still whispers sometimes. But now I whisper back. I remember. And I choose not to feed you. If you want more chilling true crime stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the Veil of Secrets.